Hey everybody, want to welcome our next guest speaker in MKT 365 Esports Marketing. Samantha Bickel is the Executive Director at the Pennsylvania Interscholastic Esports Association. Really excited to have her join us and tell you a little bit about her role and talk to you a little bit about sort of, governance and recreation as it relates to esports. So welcome, Samantha.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Sure. Samantha, why don't you just start out and just tell the students a little bit about sort of your background and your current role at the PIEA Interscholastic Esports Association.
Definitely. So I have a undergraduate degree in business administration, a master's degree in sports administration. I was originally working in college athletics and facilities and operations. I started at the University of Pennsylvania and then moved down to be a facility director in Virginia, the middle of Virginia, at Sweetbriar College. And then from there, I got a remote position working with a small esports company called Vanta Leagues. During COVID, when all of athletics kind of shut down and there wasn't much to do, I took the time to pivot and see if I could go into a different field. And once I got into esports, I realized I was pretty passionate about it. I loved playing video games growing up. I was interested in the industry in itself. So I worked with that company for a little bit, and then the PIEA in Pennsylvania opened up a new position. Then I applied, and I've been with them since 2021. In this position now, the PIEA hosts state championship leagues for high schools across the state. We have over 200 high schools that compete in Pennsylvania, from Pittsburgh, Erie, Poconos, Philadelphia, Harrisburg, all throughout. And we do 4 main game titles. So Rocket League, Valorant, Overwatch 2, and Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. And then we're also adding Marvel Rivals and Fortnite for fall 2025. Right now we have fall and spring split seasons with in-person conference finals. The teams are placed into conference based on their region, so they're playing as local as possible. And then in end of May, first weekend of June, we have state championship grand finals for all 4 game titles in one location over one weekend. So my main responsibilities is really coordinating all of that, schedules, communicating with the teams, working with locations to host the event in both the fall, the spring, and the grand finals. And then everything that goes along with it. We stream Monday through Thursday for probably 20 or more matches for each game title that are designated for those days. So working with the production team and the casters, we get jerseys for all of the kids. There's a number of other items like media days and curriculum that we provide as well for the teams and the schools.
So for the state championships, is that an in-person event?
Yep. In the fall and the spring, the in-person conference finals are in person, as well as the state championship grand finals would be in person. So we have 3 different in-person events throughout the school year for the students and the team.
Now, do you manage those events, or is it contracted out by another entity?
No, we manage all of it. So I'm the one coordinating with the locations to get the green light for the dates, what's going to happen, providing them with logistics. And then we partnered with the Esports company in August. So they run all of the production. They kind of power our league. They're also a Pennsylvania-based company out in Johnstown, Altoona area. So they would then send their producers to the site to run the streams on site.
Okay. Now, do you do you try to look for, like, what are some of the criteria you look for when you look for an in-person event? Is it location? Is it capacity? What sort of what are you looking
It
for?
mainly location. So we would have between 4 to 5 different sites for the conference finals, just so those teams have less than a 2-hour travel range.
Okay.
And then we look to partner with colleges or universities to get the kids on a campus, have them play in an actual collegiate esports arena, and see, the opportunity, the potential for that next step if they want to play there, or if the college or university has like an esports program, getting them more information on that, just to continue to show that there are more opportunities than just playing at that next level.
Okay. So I mentioned to you earlier, I had the students submit questions just so we can kind of keep the conversation going. So I think I'll probably just start asking some questions here, and I think hopefully there's some good. I think there are some pretty good ones here. So let me see the first one here. Um, what kind of trends are you seeing right now in esports, especially at their recreational level?
So at the scholastic level, trends could just be the interest in the various game titles, and wanting to branch out to more opportunity than your traditional ones, as well as the interest of the workforce development and um, different positions that these kids could take. We see a lot of interest in AI or different platforms. So there's been trends for coaches looking for opportunity to better coach. Most of the coaches at the high school level are more volunteers that are passionate about their students instead of coaches that have video game or esports background and experience and actually um, assist with the coaching itself. So looking for an interest in things like that that can benefit the players, the coaches, the programs themselves.
Okay. Um, how does esports assist with student engagement or academic performance?
Yeah, so pretty well actually. Our league works similar to the PIAA with traditional sports. So the students need to maintain certain grades in order to participate. And with that, we've gotten a lot of feedback saying that these students weren't in any other extracurriculars, and now they're actually being involved. They're part of a team. They're getting all of those different skills that you could also see on a athletic sports team, but able to compete virtually in something that they're also passionate about. We also see a number of times where a coach reaches out and says, hey, they can't play this week, their grades aren't up to standards. And then we hear from the kids in our Discord server, like being upset that they need to get focused on, being within their standards so they can continue to compete.
Okay. One of the questions I sort of had, and it's been a sort of a discussion we've had throughout the semester, is really kind of the role of the game developers in terms of how they sort of can control or dictate the usages of the games and sort of so do you have to deal with that as it relates to, when you decide to use a game? Is there sort of restrictions or guidelines that you have to use in terms of how you can develop sort of or structure competition?
Yes, now there is some leeway or getting passed by, as we're not like the biggest, we're not a play versus where we're nationwide. So you can somewhat fly under the radar for a bit, but with certain games like Fortnite, um, you need to get in contact with the developers, which can be extremely hard to do. But we have gotten in contact with Fortnite and with Epic Games. So for both Fortnite and Rocket League, they provided us like brand guidelines. So for anything on content, media, social media, or within our streams, or even as specific as our game rules and what we explain to the students, there's specific verbiage that needs to be taken place. Now, when it comes to the game rules in general, they just requested to see those and look over it. I'm assuming for that case, it would be for other tournaments that may do things that aren't as traditional. But our game rules have always been pretty traditional in line with the games themselves.
Okay. One of the questions that came, one of the students asked was, how does the PIEA establish sort of fair play and rules and regulations?
So every game that, every match that the students are in, excuse me, hold on 1 second.
No problem.
Every match that the students are in, there is a moderator or a referee. And that's part of the esport company tech that they create the game lobby. They're in there managing the game rules, but also any toxic behavior, and that all then anything would get sent to me and some of my teammates within the league to review and make sure guidelines, behaviors, and rules are being followed and met. Now, in the creation of the rules, we create them based off of a number of items. So gameplay itself, as well as we look at professional and collegiate leagues too, to be in line with those.
Right. Where do you sort of see, where do you see esports going? It was interesting how sort of esports developed, obviously during COVID, like you'd mentioned. But now we're sort of out of that area, and now we're sort of seeing, is this the next still trend and boom, or is it really leveled off in some ways? Like, where do you see in terms of players, in terms of businesses, where do you see this sort of the future going?
Yeah, I think originally starting off with the professional leagues probably wasn't the best. And that's why there was such a big boom, and then kind of, the not necessarily a crash, but a lot of professional teams disbanded or things fell through from like the pro leagues, and they had to pivot and whatnot. So I think with all of the starting at the lower level scholastic leagues across the state and the nation just in general, and building up that way, and then now collegiate is also getting bigger, which can provide more avenues for the professional league, that it will continue to be successful, especially since there is a lot of passion and interest, and there are a lot of people doing great things in the scene. And we get contacted quite often about just esports arenas or like PC gaming businesses around the state that are interested in either partnering to have schools be able to compete on site for them, or just being a asset in a way that they can provide to their communities. The esports community in general is very inviting and willing to work with each other and partner. So I think in that sense, for the meantime, it will continue to grow. But as soon as something might get too big, and then people start wanting to pull in their own direction, and manage differently. But I don't see it crashing for any reason.
Okay. You mentioned that you're going to be adding some titles, so Marvel
Mhm.
Rivals and Fortnite. What are some of the criteria that when you look at adding games, what are some of the to make sure that they're the right fit for the high school level?
Yep. So the ratings are probably the biggest one. That's the first thing that we focus on. We can't have any M-rated games where it's 17 or older, just because the majority of the students playing are minors. So first, it needs to be rated for their age appropriately, and then we test new game titles in the winter and the spring. So we have a winter rush and a spring fling where we put out those game titles and just generate how much interest there is. And if there is enough, then we do it again in the spring, and then that just kind of signifies that for the fall it can be added as a title for a state championship opportunity. We also work off of a board of directors, so I need to provide them with more information about the games, and they take a vote on it to pass it through.
Okay. One of the I think common sort of themes that we've heard back from folks that are working in esports is that it's becoming more difficult to find like that new demographic of fan or that older demographic. Um, what do you think? What do you think these titles or these leagues or what can they do to attract that maybe that casual fan or maybe that non-fan to this property?
So I think we might be a little different just because it's high school students and
Sure.
middle school students.
Sure.
So it's more based off of the interest of the parents, but I actually have parents who call me asking what game their kid's stream is going to be on, or asking for specific about events because they're excited to show up and support their kid, or just even being at the events and having parents reach out saying thank you, like, I don't know what's going on, but I watch every game just because my kid loves doing this. So for us it might be a little bit different just because you're talking about parents and minors, and some are more involved than others, even though if they don't know.
Sure.
But I do think in order to gain more viewers or average fans or whatnot, it is important for casters to have good casters, a good crew for the entertainment aspect, who is able to break down the gameplay and explain more about what's going on and why maybe this player is moving in this direction, or um, just kind of what is happening within the game itself. You think of color commentators in basketball, football, fighting, whatever that may be, and they're um, breaking down the play. So even if you are unaware of what's happening, you have them kind of talking in the background, giving you an explanation, but also that entertaining aspect. So I do think production crew is really important.
Okay. Uh, One of the questions that I received here is what would you say are some of the biggest challenges that you face at the high school level?
Uh, the coaches, the coaches being volunteers, and not really part participating, I guess, as much as we would like. So they don't need much participation other than setting rosters each game day and being the leader for their team, and the adult contact that we can reach out to. But a lot of them put students in that leadership position, which is great when you have a great student who is able to through our Discord server. But that is definitely one thing where we're working with the coaches to help them understand each of the game titles as well, and giving like training sessions on what those games um, are like, and their what is needed of them for each game day. Another thing is fees in general. So we currently work off of fees. Our teams pay a set fee for their district for the school year, and with that, they get the jerseys, they get the streams. They have media days where we come in and we get drone footage, take player photos, team photos, do short interviews for them, to give them content about their program, and kind of uplift what they're doing on the school level. But all of that incurs a cost, so that can be a barrier to entry. And then even as far as equipment, so we provide opportunity for equipment rentals, but getting a whole PC setup can be expensive. So we have the option where they could get everything included, jerseys, the competition, the streams, and 6 full PC setups for only 3,500 for the year. But that is always something that is difficult for them to get on their budget.
Sure. One of the you mentioned about just the idea that you're dealing with minors that are competing, and so what I guess what's the responsibility here at the state level to ensure safety, to make sure that students aren't getting sort of burnout or overworked, right? There's a balance between academics and sort of the I guess a hobby or a recreation. So what do you what systems are in place to do that?
Yep. So all of the employees are background checked, fingerprinted to start, just to ensure safety in that on that
Right.
side of things. Now, in terms of students being burnt out and whatnot, again, we follow kind of like the PIAA rule set where there's a certain amount of like the schedule in terms of weeks and gameplay. So on the team side, usually or on the school side, their home location, usually they have between 2 to 3 days of after school activities. And that falls in with our per game title, their 1 day of matches. So Mondays are Overwatch, Tuesdays Rocket League, Wednesdays Valorant, and Thursdays are Super Smash Brothers Ultimate. And typically there are no schools that are in all 4 that they're doing it. So the student is, competing Monday through Thursday. We have not had that situation occur, so there hasn't been a specific need to ensure something in that case. There wouldn't be burnout there. The only time I guess we have heard of burnout was with our longer seasons. So we have had an 8-week season before, which 8 weeks then led into a postseason. So it was closer to 10 to 11 weeks. And with that, we moved the seasons down to between 6 or 7.
Okay. Besides fees, do you have any other kinds of partnerships in place to help fund this sport?
So we get grants from the state for either putting on events or just supporting and reducing those fees for the teams. And then a lot of colleges and universities we work with, we partner with, and they pay like a sponsorship fee, I guess you could say, for a number of items, having their commercials added to the streams each day. They work with the esport company to have them put on their streams in the evenings and get their casting crew to do their streams and all that production. So that's a added factor for them. And then they get access to our platform for recruiting purposes. But colleges and universities have been our biggest partner sponsorship opportunity. We have worked with like BreezeLine previously, or some one-off companies who have interest as well.
And I guess the colleges and universities look at this as an opportunity for like almost a recruitment or admissions and that sort of thing.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Where do you see sort of, where do you see, the outlook for, esports for at the high school levels? Like, is it going to continue to grow, or are schools and school districts continuing to invest in this types of activities?
Surprisingly, yes. So when we moved with the esport company, I was a bit concerned. Hold on one second. So I was a bit concerned because they had previously done fees, and the PIEA had not. We were free to play type of league. So with that, I was worried that our 150 plus schools would go way, way down in numbers due to the fees required. Now, with that being said, every first season with the esport company, they get the first season free of any costs, and everything included, even the jerseys they provide to the teams. Um, and our numbers didn't move down. In fact, they actually moved up for new teams and schools wanting to get onboarded. And the process with that is we work with their administrators as well as the coach who would be in that position. And once we kind of talk over everything that our league provides, which is I like to think very different than a lot of other leagues. A lot of them see the impact and the opportunity. So not even the streams, the jerseys, and having a moderator or person in each match and that game day experience to ensure safe and fair play. But we also provide esports curriculum at the high school level. And we provide opportunities for students at the high schools to actually gain experience and work with us in an internship setting where they are getting paid and working remotely. So I think with like that whole package, it's very inviting for schools, and the equipment option where they can get involved, and we kind of set up, 6 PCs at a smaller price point than if they wanted to invest in that, which could be, closer to a $15,000 investment.
Right. Uh, I mentioned to you earlier, and one of the things that we've talked a little bit about in class is that the idea that you could, you might have a passion for working in sports and traditional sports, or what we, maybe refer to as legacy sports, and then end up working in esports, like sort of like your career path that you told us a little bit about. I guess, what do you like about working in esports, and how did your experience in college athletics prepare you for this sort of role?
So what I like about esports is I'm just interested in the gaming world itself, and playing video games. So that is my background passion, I guess also why I went into college athletics, because I grew up playing soccer and I enjoy sports in general as well. Now with this job, um, different than college athletics, and what I enjoy is the opportunity to work remotely. So that's always been a huge benefit, not having to go into the office and getting, my whole PC set up and in the comfort of my own home.
Sure.
But also the ability to play new games and test things out. So when Marvel Rivals came out in early December, I believe it was, and the kids were like, "Is this going to be a thing?" I was one of the first people to download it and try it, and a lot of people, when I say I work in esports, are like, "Oh, you just play games all day," and I'm like, "I wish I could." But that is then the one opportunity where I can, where I do get on and I see how it's played, and I see it. It would be a title that we're able to use competitively, make custom games, create the game rules, how that would work. So that's always a fun part. And then the in-person events and at the scholastic level, the kids are very passionate and excited to have the opportunity to be in person. So watching them all come in with their jerseys and, their excitement, and when they're playing in person, it's way different because they, get to see their opponents right next to them, where typically they're just at their home site or at their home, because some teams do play from home. But watching it all kind of come together at the end is it's kind of like a traditional sport event.
Sure.
So
What
yeah.
what advice would you give to any students that are looking to potentially get involved in esports for a potential career?
Yeah, so I think starting anywhere, getting any type of opportunity you can. I started in a small organization, but I think it's the experience of getting that in your background that would be most important. So really just being involved, and sometimes that might mean being involved and being unpaid. Hopefully not, because I've been there and I understand how hard that can be. But really, the experience and the connections would be most important. Esports is still growing, so it's one of those industries where someone might get a job and they might stay there for a long time until they find or until a better job for them opens up, and then their job opens up. But it's one of those that if you get an opportunity and you pass it down, just because you didn't like it, it might be a while for you to find another opportunity that is, the perfect job for you. Um, so just getting in and getting involved in the experience would be best.
Okay, I appreciate that. Any other questions for Samantha? Anybody? Okay. Well, Samantha, again, we appreciate your sort of jumping on here and talking to us. Really kind of informative stuff. I really, I just think it was great to hear from someone in esports at a different sort of level, more on the, the high school level and the state level. And I think that's was really interesting. So I do appreciate you jumping on. If any of the students want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
You can share my email with them,
Okay.
definitely. And also if anyone, I know this is a marketing class, so if anyone is interested in, we have like our own content team that does video editing, social media, things like that, that they're always looking for people as well. So I'm always welcome to let you know, if you are interested in getting a start, and just providing more information as needed.
Great. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Mm.
And hopefully we'll talk soon.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody. See you later. Have a good break, boss.